and welcome to the session Coaching Through Change. In this past school year, it's been a little bit crazy. Feel free in the chat to introduce yourself, share some of your experience. Are you a coach? What is your job role? Because I know for me, coaching this past school year with COVID was intense. It was insane. And so I want to use some of those things that I've learned and some of the research that I've kind of done to help me throughout the coaching period of the pandemic and to use it next school year. So I'm really excited to share just some of the different strategies I've learned and used with my own teachers to kind of drive that change forward. If you don't know me, my name is Stephanie Howe, and I'm an instructional tech coach in Pickerington Local School District. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. I'll throw my Twitter right into the chat if you want to follow along with me. Feel free also, if you have any questions or need any assistance, send me a DM. Happy to connect with you as well that way. And also, I just shared the Google Slides with this group, so I'm going to throw the links in for the slide deck into the chat. If you are not a part of the group, join the group so that you can access the slides as well. And so I'm going to add that link into the chat as well. So if you want to join along, go ahead and click. If you don't have access, you need to join that Google group first. And that Google group, I just threw the link into the chat. So you'll want to join the group first, and then you'll be able to view those slides and all the resources for today's presentation. So feel free to kind of look at all that different information. And we got Jeffrey here. He's a certified coach. And it looks like in an elementary school. So welcome. So excited to see you today. Okay, so I want you to kind of think and reflect. What changes would you like to see as a result of this experience over the pandemic? And so what have you experienced throughout COVID that you kind of want to see some change happen? And I'm going to throw this Wakelet link in the chat as well, because we are going to start to kind of collaborate and just think together and reflect on this pandemic. So if you haven't used Wakelet before, this is the Wakelet link. And you're just going to go to Wakelet, and then you're just going to click edit, and then just add your thoughts. So right here, having students work independently. That was huge this year. We were hybrid, and so we had to have our students work independently, and teachers had to go through that kind of stage and stuff like that. Another big one for us, and if you're on Wakelet and you want to add something, you'll go to this plus sign, click the text box, or maybe you have an image, feel free, or maybe even have like a PDF of a thought that you've kind of gone through. So right here, I'm going to add this text box. And something else that our teachers really did throughout the pandemic that was helpful was creating videos. So I'm going to write creating videos. And I would really like to see those continue this next school year, because our students were able to pause and they were able to maybe slow down the playback speed, speed up the playback speed. They were able to embed questions and make it interactive for some of our students. They were able to create different choice boards and different activities like that for our students. And so again, just go ahead and add some of these ideas onto this Wakelet. You just hit edit, and then you can start typing. And I would just love to get some of your thoughts about how you have kind of coached through some of those changes, thinking about what have your teachers done this past school year that is kind of remarkable and that you would like to see continue even after that pandemic. Trying to think what else our teachers kind of did. I know a lot of it was like the parent and student relationship, or the parent and teacher relationship. So our parents and our parents, I'll put teacher too. It became like a really good partnership between those three different stakeholders. Our parents and our teachers and our students, they were able to meet instead of in person through Google Meet. And so what that meant was the parent was driving their kid to soccer, and they could hop on a phone call to talk with their teacher about what was going on and to kind of conference with them, where before it was like, I can't come in, I have to take off, and I have to do this and this. And there was just so many barriers or so many excuses that our parents or teachers could use, where Google Meet really did take that barrier away for a lot of our staff members and our parents. Okay, so keep adding your reflections to this Wakelet. We can kind of review that too as we kind of get going. But I just want you to, again, think and reflect. What changes would you like to see that were a result of your experience over that pandemic? Now, as a coach, looking at these three different cartoons, when you think about change management, which cartoon resonates with you and why? So post your answer in that chat. Are you this one where you're kind of in that spinning boat and you're saying forward one? We'll say option one. Option two here, come over here and you're like, how? Or are you option three? Who wants change? And it's like everybody wants change. Who wants to change? Nobody. And then who wants to lead the change? Again, you're kind of by yourself. So which one of these pictures kind of resonates with you as a coach? Where do you fall? Do you feel like you're kind of telling people and people are going different directions? Are you telling the people to come over here and they don't know how? Or are you the final cartoon where you are trying to lead that change with a group of people, but nobody wants to go with you? And so I think sometimes as a leader, we all fit into this cartoon in some way. And for me, the one that resonates with me the most is this one. And so I'm over here and I'm like, who wants to change? And everyone's like, yeah, that sounds great. Or that's a great idea, Stephanie. And then I'm like, who wants to do it? And then nobody wants to do it with me. And it's like, I have to figure out how I'm going to motivate people. And what's hard for me is I'm so type A that I have to let go of some of those tendencies to want to do some of those changes for people and come alongside with them and reflect with them and help them problem solve alongside with them instead of me just taking control and doing the change for some people. So that's just been a lesson that I've had to learn. But I would love to see your reflections again in that chat. Are you number one, number two, or are you number three? I'm going to give people just a moment to respond. And I think too, like some people, you feel like you are this number two where there's that big gap and you're just like, come over here. And everyone's like, well, how do I get there? So change is hard. And I think we have to think about, why do people hate or fear change? Why is it that people really do hate that word change or hate that word? Like it causes some tension when we kind of go with that. Yeah, Jeffrey, I'm glad you're number three with me. I'm glad I'm not alone. We can be the ones that move the change together. But I think too, just reflecting on that, like, why do people hate and fear change so much? And it's often because, yeah, it's uncomfortable. That's exactly right. It is uncomfortable. Change takes effort, and effort sometimes leads to that pain. We're afraid of that pain. We're afraid of that unknown, uncertainty. And we want to know that there is going to be a payoff from all the effort we put in. But because we don't know, we're afraid to do it. And so, with some of the new strategies our teachers had to do, I remember back in the spring, some of them were like freaking out, like, well, I don't know. And there was a lot of unknown. We didn't know if we were going to be out of school for 2 weeks until then it became a month, and then it became the rest of the school year. And that unknown for people was scary. And so when we go through change, you kind of have to remember, why is it that people hate change? It's usually because they don't know, they're uncertain, and there's sometimes pain when we don't know or we have effort and it doesn't work out the way that we think it's going to work out. And so this model right here, the Noster model, I really loved looking at this model. Oh, perfect. I'm glad you're here, Michelle. And if you're new, you're in the right place. We're all still learning how to coach, and you'll realize where you fall probably pretty soon once you get going. But this Noster model, it's a framework, and it helps shape our communications to our teachers, to our educators, to whoever your end user is. And you are able to focus with your stakeholders and to motivate, and you're able to work with this model to really activate that change that you're really looking for as an organization. Because I am that number three picture, or it resonates most with me, but I cannot lead the change for a whole district. I cannot do that alone. And so with this model, it really focuses in on how we can use that with multiple different perspectives, multiple different people, and how we can use that to grow our organization. Also, this really helps pinpoint exactly where we're lacking. And I love that it's able to pinpoint exactly kind of where issues are happening and what we're kind of able to do with those different reactions. Because sometimes when I first started coaching, I was getting reactions that weren't always the nicest, and or excuses, or even just plain out being honest of scared of change reactions. And I didn't know what that meant. But after looking at this model, I now have a better understanding of where every teacher is and what resources or what they need to help them meet that change area. Also, we've got to figure out how this fits within our existing processes. And it's going to help us inform our design and type of marketing when we are trying to implement new things in a district. So this is the Noster model. And right here, you can see all these different things. So we've got vision, we have skills, we have motivation, resources, and an action plan. Okay. These are the things that are needed for change to happen. You have to have vision, you have to have skills, you have to have motivation, you have to have resources, and you have to have that action plan. If one of these are missing, which a lot of times in my world it is missing, it can cause some feelings. So over here, if you've got all these things, people are ready to change. You have given them a full vision. You've set them up with the skills that they need to be successful. You've helped them with the motivation to help them understand that they can do it. You've given them the resources that they need and that action plan. Change is going to happen. However, in a lot of our organizations, in a lot of our teams, there's usually some type of step missing. And so that's when you start to see this type of feeling come out. And this is where I failed my first year and my first couple of years of coaching, because I would see people and they might be really, really, really anxious. And I'm a tech coach. And so technology was new to a lot of my teachers when I first started in this role. And the vision was set, the motivation was set, the resources were there, and the action plans were all laid out, but they felt like they didn't have the skills to be successful. And so because they had the skills missing, I had to suggest, hey, I'll come in and co-teach with you. I'll do this and we can work together. And so that's when coaching becomes really powerful. And you're able to provide that job embedded PD to teachers throughout whenever they're showing anxiety because they're lacking skills. So you can go alongside of them, plan with them, co-teach with them, and then hopefully that missing piece comes and then they're able to change. Maybe you have some teachers that are confused. And so they don't have that vision. Maybe you haven't laid out like this is the group vision. And when we don't set a vision for an organization, people will create their own. And so then you've got people kind of going all over the place throughout an organization, believing different things, and nobody's kind of working together to row that boat. And so with that one, you've got the skills, you've got the motivation, you've got the resources and the action plan, but you're missing that vision. And so just looking at this and looking at how teachers react can really help us to know where are they lacking and what do they need? And why are they reacting this way to the change can allow me to quickly change the way that I'm presenting information to them. So again, right here is that model, and it's just addressing all of these different elements will likely help with change. So making sure that you have all of these different elements in place will, again, make sure that your organizations and teachers are ready to change. So we're going to kind of map out our plan, because it's really important to look at our plan and how are we going to do this? How are we going to motivate teachers to want to change? How are we going to use this model to help us address some of those different concerns that teachers have? And so here's our roadmap. We're going to look at our designation and why are we going there? How do we get to that designation and what do we need to bring? So when we're going on a trip, you need gas and you need a purpose for the journey, unless you're just road tripping. So that's your motivation. You're thinking about, okay, I've got the gas, I've got where I'm going. That is like where I'm going. All right. The next part is your activation. It's that GPS and that vehicle and the snacks that you need to get there. It's like part of the trip. And so with vision, what we will likely experience to be like when it's done. And so right here, we've got our vision missing. And so again, we've got everything else in place, but that vision is missing. So if we've got that vision missing, teachers are going to struggle to understand what we kind of expect or what our goal is for an organization. And they're going to really kind of question, what is our vision? What is our motive? What is our mission to education or to my classroom? And so we've got to provide that vision to them. Incentives. So how will it benefit them? When you're casting a idea, think about, how is this going to incentive? How is it going to benefit my teachers? If you're just doing a change and it's not going to benefit them, is it a change worthwhile? And so really asking that question, how is this change going to benefit the teachers? And then you have to make it relatable to them. And so, like, for an example, you might have a vision that is to improve, the math scores. How is that going to relate to an ELA teacher? Or maybe it's reading schools or scores. How is that going to relate to a math teacher? You've got to make it personalized to the teacher on how you're going to help and benefit them throughout the change. And then, do we agree? And so we've got to agree on that shared kind of vision and that motivation. So these 3 areas are showing that motivation. And we have to think about it. Do we agree with one another? If we have that vision and we don't agree on it, we can, again, be going different directions. And so we've got to make sure we've got that vision, incentive, and agreement. And then to activate it, we've got to have those action plans and to know, how do we get there? Who needs to do what? And I think, too, we need to think about that and lay that out for teachers of who does this, who does that. And yes, both the teachers decide together. That's partnership. And I think, too, when we create that actionship, when is it going to be done? And then we follow up with each other and we're able to create those plans that are really actionable for our teachers. And then, do we have what it takes? Do we have the skills to be successful? And so with this one, do our teachers have all the training, all the knowledge, and all the abilities? Like, for example, when we were going to COVID and it was like required to have a video, well, do they know how to add Screencastify? Do they know how to use that video to create really good videos? Do they have that training? And so again, that's where I'm able to come in and co-teach with the teachers and really walk them through the different steps. Resources, do they have what they need? Was that extension unblocked? Did we need the paid version? Because when you don't have the resources that you need, it can be really frustrating if you're not able to teach without all these different things. And so you kind of have to ask, is this vision, is it able to be carried out? And do we have the skills and the resources that we need to create and cast this vision? And so right here is just kind of a nice little graphic organizer that you can use. And this is on slide 29. And down in the speaker notes, there is a slide and it has just this template. So right here is just this template. If you kind of want to just think about, okay, what is our vision? How is it going to affect my end user? Okay, what's the incentives for doing it? How is it going to affect that end user? Are we on the same page? How is it, again, the school, the end user? And so I use this to kind of help me think about and kind of transform how I'm going to kind of cast out that vision and that dream to our school district and how we're going to create that action plan. So again, how are we going to have that action plan? How do they get there? What skills do they need? And this just helps me to make sure I'm covering every single part to make sure that that change process is a little bit ready for teachers and it's not so uncomfortable for them. And so again, we've got to meet that need. We've got to meet teachers exactly where they are, and we've got to figure out, why are they showing that emotion, to really dig into that model and then fix that issue. So if we realize that teachers are confused, okay, we need to cast a better vision. We need to explain it better. We need to bring it up more and talk about it and relate how they're meeting that need. And so right here, we've got to meet that need again. So we got to meet the need, plan for change, and not necessarily perfection. And sometimes we've got to tell teachers, it's okay to not be perfect. We just need you to do some little changes, but it's totally okay to not be that perfect self. Support and empower. We've got to support our teachers along the way. And that's where coaching is really, really at the front of this, where we're able to co-teach and support our teachers as needed. then we can grow and get better. We're able to grow alongside of the teachers and work together with one another. And then we can innovate and expand. And that's when innovation starts to happen. So again, meeting that need can be a really beneficial thing for your classroom and for your teachers. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me on walking through coaching and just thinking about coaching through change and what that all looks like in a crazy world. And if you would like a certificate of attendance, I'm going to throw that link into the chat. And then feel free as well to check out the Gold EDU site. There is a new site and there are some changes on there. So feel free to look at it and see some of those updates. But right here's the Google form for your feedback. You're going to put your email address, your name, date you attended, how long, what event you attended, and then there's a quick survey for feedback from me. So thanks again so much for attending, and keep using this model and think about how can you drive change in your district? How can you use the feelings that your teachers are having to empower them and to start that change process at a wider method? Thanks, guys.